Welcome. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel as we try to build this thing up. All right, on Monday, we released a video. It was a full 7-round mock draft for the Green Bay Packers. I went through, picked every pick with no trades. And I said I was going to do one more video before the draft on Thursday, and we're releasing it a day later here on Tuesday, or I guess depending on when you're watching it. And this one includes trades. And it's nothing crazy, unrealistic. Like, I used the trade value chart from Draft Tech to make sure the points added up and the trades were even. Like, I didn't want to do anything where it was like, oh my gosh, Green Bay traded with Cleveland. They moved up from 23-2 to take Travis Hunter, and all they had to do was give up a 6th-round pick. Like, we're not doing anything foolish. There are a good amount of trades. There's a player involved in one. That should kind of be a big hint and be fairly obvious, but we'll get to that when it pops up. So yeah, there's trades involved. We'll jump right in. I used Pro Football Focus for this one, and I used, instead of their big board, I used the combination of the big boards. You can kind of set the tools in the settings tab to how you want it, and I tried to set it to be as realistic as possible. So here we go. Packers 7-round mock draft includes trades. First round, no fireworks. No theater. I had them sitting at 23. I did pause it a couple of times to think about moving up. If you want to know, I know a lot of people want Green Bay to take a wide receiver in the first round. Tet McMillan went number 5 to Jacksonville, and some of you might be like, Jacksonville, like, they have other needs, and they have Brian Thomas already, and that's fair, but a lot of people think Tet could be a Mike Evans clone, and Jacksonville's head coach is Liam Cohen, who was Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator, so maybe you get a nice 1-2 duo at wide receiver for quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Emeka Egbuka of Ohio State was off the board. Matthew Golden from Texas was available. But when I was sifting through options and trying to go best player available, also trying to thread that needle with what's also an area of need for Green Bay, and I know Goody has said repeatedly their preference would be to just go best player available in all circumstances. I like to try to mix and match a little bit in certain spots, in certain areas of the draft, at least this year for the Packers. But when I was sifting through the options, a lot of the heavy hitters as far as like players that have been linked to Green Bay as potential fits at 23 were off the board. We went with James Pierce, edge rusher out of Tennessee. And I will say, just from what I'm gathering as far as like reading reports, stories, listening to podcasts, watching YouTube videos, mock drafts, all this stuff, of all the potential fits that are, quote, like realistic for Green Bay at 23, because they're not going to take a quarterback or a tight end or a running back in round 1. They could go a lot of different directions, right? But if you talk about a fit that's realistic for Green Bay, that makes sense, that checks some of the boxes for the Packers, James Pierce to me is one that just isn't being brought up that much. And he has a fascinating resume. Green Bay did use a top 30 visit on him. I just feel like, and I fell guilty to this as well. Like when we talk edge rushers for the Packers, a lot of people are like, Stewart from Texas A&M and Mikael Williams from Georgia and Donovan Ezaraku from Boston College and the Jeff Hafley ties, talking about round 1 guys or potential round 1 guys. And James Pierce, they used a 30 visit on him. Just haven't heard that name that much yet. I took him here for the Packers based on what was available and the options to trade back. I did not like either as far as value for what the Packers would be getting back. He's not being talked about enough. Could be because he's on the lighter side at 245 pounds for what the Packers typically prefer on the edge. But the dude is, my goodness, he is super, super, super explosive. 17.5 sacks, 27.5 tackles for loss in the last 2 years, and that's playing in the SEC. And if you're talking about an edge rusher and you're like, man, he might be a little on the light side, 245 pounds. He's going up against big tackles, big guards in the SEC, and he's still dominating. Again, 17.5 sacks, 2 years in the SEC. The last 2 years in the SEC for Tennessee, 27.5 TFLs. That is nothing to ignore. That is nothing to roll your eyes at. Those are really, really good numbers for what is deemed, a light edge rusher for his weight. I'm not sure whoever drafts James Pierce, how much you try to fill out his frame at the next level, or if you just cut him loose and let him be who he is. I don't know if it'd be a detriment to try to have him bulk up a little bit. I don't know how much you would have him bulk up. Very, very instinctive, very, very twitchy. For an edge rusher, this number should jump out to you. He had a 4.4 speed at the combine in the 40-yard dash. I think it was a 4.47 which is just absolutely insane. You can line them up in different spots. Green Bay loves versatility, right? They like taking players you can put in different situations, put in different spots, whether it's a wide receiver that you can put on the outside, put in the slot like Jaden Reed, whether it's someone like Jordan Morgan, who might project as an offensive tackle, first-round pick out of Arizona last year, but he was filtered in at right guard, along with Sean Ryan in his rookie campaign. Green Bay loves versatility. James Pierce, ideally, you put him on the edge, but Tennessee would line him up on the inside and put him in a standing position. He'd be in a stance, standing up on many occasions. So you can mix and match with him, and he pops on tape. There's a lot to like. If you're only negative with Pierce is, man, for what the Packers typically go with for size at the edge spot, he's a little light. I get it, but is that really going to be one thing that's great enough to prevent you from taking him when you see so much good on film? This is a pick to me that you make this pick and he finds his way onto the field in some form or fashion as a rookie. He finds his way onto the field as a rookie more than you would think. Green Bay used a 30 visit on him. We know Goody said in his presser on Monday that, they have their own metrics that they use for grading prospects, but they don't use RAS. But it is kind of a coincidence in that a lot of these guys Green Bay take have a great and a very high RAS score. Just for reference, Pierce scored a 9.35 RAS out of 10. So we took James Pierce in the first round. Might not be the most popular pick, maybe even against among edge rushers that could be available for Green Bay, but a lot of the names were off the board. Williams was gone, Stewart was gone. Ezraku, I believe, was there, but I went with James Pierce to kind of shake it up a little bit. Green Bay's next pick scheduled to be at number 54, pick 54, round 2. It is Mitch M on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always, always, always appreciate all the support. We said there'd be trades, right, in this video for the mock draft, and this is our first one. And it might sound intimidating if I just told you this. Green Bay has pick number 54 in the second round, and I decided to trade out of the second round completely. And you might be like, that seems kind of crazy. That seems a bit extreme. I'll frame it to you this way to make it sound more positive. Put a brighter light on me for making this trade, right? Green Bay, I traded pick number 54 and only moved back 11 spots. Went from 54 to 65. And I have the full graphic pulled up right here, but we're going to tease you guys along the way. So I moved back 11 spots. I went from 54 to 65 and also collected another third-round pick at number 99 and a seventh rounder at 218, I believe is what that says. It's a little blurry on the screen. So you move back 11 spots, 54 to 65. You also scoop up another third at 99 and a seventh rounder. Look, we know Goody likes to stockpile picks. Many drafts have come and gone with Goody at the controls where they have finished with double-digit picks. They've had a couple where they finished with 9. They entered this draft with, I believe it's 8. He has talked about on numerous occasions this offseason already the want, the desire to add more picks, to have more than what they're going in with. Here's a spot where you can move back 11. And the reason I did it was not just to make a trade. I looked at who was available. I looked at value. I looked at what I would want Green Bay to do in this situation. And I said, there's like 4 or 5 dudes here at 54 that I could see taking right now. Why not move back 11 spots? Why not collect 2 more picks in the process, including another third rounder, and just bank in on one of those guys still being available 11 slots from now? Is there some risk? Yeah, but are all 4 or 5 going to be, gobbled up in the next 11? Probably not. 1 or 2 you would think would be available, and that is exactly how this played out. So I traded 54 for 65.99 in 218. The pick we used then at 65 when we move 11 spots back, Stanford wide receiver Alec Iomanner. This is a wide receiver who checks a lot of Green Bay boxes, I would say. Good size, 6'2", 205 pounds. Doesn't mind whatsoever doing the dirty work as a run blocker. He is more than willing to help in the ground game at the wide receiver position, and we know how much Green Bay values that. I would say probably nobody does it better right now in the wide receiver room for Green Bay than Christian Watson. His size, his length, his strength, his willingness, he does not mind being a run blocker. He embraces it. Iomanner is kind of cut from that same cloth. He'll make contested catches look easier than they are. He is I'm trying to think of more cheesy expressions to use for him, right? But he's just like he's like a lunch pail, brings the lunch pail to work kind of guy. Like, hard worker, all that stuff. Like, every single thing you read about Ioman or talks about his work ethic. He was undoubtedly the best player on Stanford's offense, the focal point for any defense preparing for the Cardinal offense, and he still put up really, really strong numbers. I see from a playing style, from an impact perspective, I see a lot of Romeo Doubs with Io Manor. And I see it from the vantage point of it's a receiver who maybe is never a number one wideout on your team, but he's always super reliable. He'll make catches where you're like, whoa. Think about like Dobbs' touchdown against Seattle late in the year last year. And it's a guy that you can always look in his direction when you're in a pinch, when you need to move the chains. Right now, Green Bay does not have that alpha. They don't have that bona fide number one wide receiver. But Dobbs at times has been the go-to for the Packers. I look at Io Manor, and I think he could be that eventually for Green Bay. Not as like an instant plug-and-play guy where it's like he's immediately your most reliable wide receiver. No, but I think down the road he could blossom into that. And again, I said it in the first mock draft video when I took a wide receiver early for Green Bay. This wide receiver room, we don't know what it looks like 2 years from now. What we do know is Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs are on expiring contracts this year. Their rookie deals come to an end after 2025. And in 2026, it'll be Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed playing on the last year of their rookie deals. It is nearly impossible to envision a scenario where all four of those guys get extensions, sent their way from Green Bay, and are locked up for the long haul. It's just not realistic to expect that. And so Green Bay's going to have to figure that puzzle out. And while they figure it out, and while they accept the fate that, hey, all four of these guys probably not going to be around for the long haul, we got to figure it out, you're going to have to draft other options too to try to fill those voids. And here's Io Manor at pick number 65 in round 3, and I think it's a great, great, great fit for Green Bay. Moving along, another trade. And this one, I have Green Bay moving back again, and I have them moving from 87 to 94. So they move 7 slots back. In this trade, Cleveland moves up to draft a quarterback, and PFF, I did not do the picks for the rest of the teams. I just did the Packers. But when you're going through PFF, it'll show you when you're up like trades, like potential options. And Cleveland was one of the 2 listed. So I clicked it. I dove into it. And Green Bay here gets 94 and 104. But they give up 2. They give up 87 and 159. So basically you're moving 7 spots back in round 3. But then you're moving up to 104 in round 4 and giving up 159, which is a 5th round pick. And so I liked, again, I'll use that word, the value. Cleveland, I was like, I'm just curious why it popped up as a trade option. They ended up taking Tyler Shaw in this simulator, the quarterback from Louisville. And so with pick number 94, because we moved back 7 slots, I took Dorian Strong, a cornerback from Virginia Tech. And yes, there is a trend here developing with my mock draft. I went edge rusher round 1. I went wide receiver round 3, with Io Manor. Now with our second of 3 third-round picks, I took Strong, the cornerback from Virginia Tech. And going into this draft, if you're talking about it from a needs vantage point, corner, wide receiver, edge, in whatever order you want to put it in, are the top 3 for Green Bay. I don't think anyone can dispute that. Maybe you want to sneak in the interior of the defensive line at defensive tackle, but I think that falls into the second tier of needs for Green Bay. I don't think I reached, though. I don't think I reached for Io Manor. I don't think I reached for Strong at 94. On the PFF big board, he's the 103rd prospect, so right around that range. Pierce, I took 23rd overall on PFF big board. He is the 23rd ranked prospect. So I don't think any of these are reaches. And again, I really tried to thread the needle with value, but also going for positions that I thought needed to be addressed early in this draft with guys who can give you some impact early on. And I know Goody said on Monday, he said the Packers don't necessarily need to draft players early that even play year one for Green Bay, that even have an impact. Because in his words, if Green Bay had to go play a game next week, he feels very, very confident about what they already have in place. Some people might disagree with that. Again, I tried going value also with areas of need. So, yeah, we went edge, wide receiver, and now corner with Dorian Strong. He's a long cornerback, 6'1". Everything I've read, watched, I'd summarize it simply by saying there isn't anything on tape with Strong that I think you would look at and say, holy crap, like he does this in an elite fashion. He is elite in press coverage. He is elite in zone coverage. His instincts are elite. His ball skills when it's in the air are elite. I don't think there's anything to that degree. He's just really, really good and really, really sound in a lot of different areas. I think ideally you don't toss him in right away with a big workload. He's disruptive in press coverage. What I like about him is when you watch him, the game looks like it moves slowly for Dorian Strong, and that's a good thing. A lot of people use that reference when they talk about NBA players. When these young players are like 18, 19 years old getting drafted in the NBA, and all of a sudden you're playing with these grizzled vets when you're on the court with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant, LeBron James. And these rookies in the NBA, when they go from year one to year two, or even their rookie year to their third year, the one big thing they'll talk about if they develop, if they start to flourish in the NBA, they'll always say the game really started to slow down for me in year X, year ABC, whether that's year 2, 3, or 4. When I watch Dorian Strong, I don't see anyone who's ever overwhelmed. I don't see anyone who's ever lacking optimism and confidence on the field. Like he moves about like the game moves slowly for him, which again is a compliment. He's a 5-year player. One of those seasons in 2022, he played 4 games before suffering a season-ending injury and using a red shirt. And so I went corner here, taller corner, 6'1", good in press coverage, Dorian Strong out of Virginia Tech. 5 picks down the road, 94-99, we're back on the clock because of that earlier trade with the Giants where we traded out of the second round completely. And this was a player I took in yesterday's mock draft where we didn't have trades, Elijah Roberts out of SMU. I like him for a couple of reasons. Green Bay used a 30 visit on him. That's not one of the reasons, but they did use a 30 visit on Elijah Roberts. You could try him because of his size alone. You could try him as a 3 technique on the interior of your defensive line. Like, you could flirt with that idea. Will it work out? I don't know, but he's not an edge rusher where you're like, well, we could never try him anywhere else. He has some versatility. Again, we know how much Green Bay values that, how much they, it checks a big box for the Packers. So if you wanted to try him as a 3 technique on the interior of the line, you could, although I think he does project more on the outside of a defensive line at the edge. He's continued to add weight throughout his college career, but in a positive way. Like, he plays well with the weight that he's currently at, which at last check was 285 pounds with the Mustangs in the ACC. Taking Roberts in the 3rd round. Now, PFF's big board has him as the 87th prospect, and I took him here at 99. But he is all over the map. I'm not quite sure why. Because, like, a lot of times if there's a 5th round pick, Sean Clifford's a perfect example. Green Bay took Sean Clifford out of Penn State a couple years ago, right? And there were so many mock drafts that had Clifford going in the 7th round or even going undrafted. Yet here the Packers are taking him in the 5th round because they saw something. And I think when you're later on in the draft, you're a lot more likely to see picks that just have a wide variance of where they could be selected. Because when you get later in the draft, these teams are, it might not be fair to phrase it this way, but you're often taking a flyer on a guy because of 1 or 2 things that you really like that you think you can maximize, or 1 or 2 things that might be untapped at the college level that you think you can bring out in a prospect if you get them into your organization, into your locker room with your coaching staff and your players. Round 3, like, typically you see round 3 guys where it's like, yeah, they might be fringe 2nd round, early 3rd round guys. When I was looking at Roberts and I was looking at various different outlets, NFL.com, PFF, looking at Todd McShay talking about edge rushers in this class, Mel Kiper all the Field Yates, all these people, Bleacher Report, looking at all these different outlets. I've seen mocks have Roberts go in the 5th round. I've seen mocks have him go really, really high in the 3rd round. Like, there is a big, like, landing area for where Elijah Roberts could go. I still took him here at 99. So if you're one of those who have seen outlets that have him going in the 4th, 5th round, you might be like, wow, that's a bit of a stretch to take him here at 99. I don't know why, but I think one big question you have with him is, will he ever be a 3-down guy for you in the NFL, or will he be more situational? And that because of that alone, and at the position he plays on the edge, that could be the deciding factor in why he's going in 3rd, 4th, 5th round range for so many different people. Just how much you either believe or don't believe he can be a 3-down player at the next level. I took a chance, if you want to phrase it that way, with him late in round 3, and yeah, doubled up on the edge. So we took James Pierce at 23 and then Elijah Roberts at 99. Because of that trade with the Browns, letting them move up 7 spots to take the quarterback Tyler Shaw from Louisville, we got 94 and 104. So here's pick 104. By the way, it is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Always appreciate all the support. Some people are going to get pissed off at me for sort of my process through this video. I took Torrey Horton here at 104, wide receiver out of Colorado State. I've raved about him in past videos. People are going to get pissed because I've gone, this was what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is our 5th pick, and we've taken now 2 wide receivers, 2 edge rushers, and a quarterback. Maybe people will praise it and say, hey, you know what? They need help at wide receiver. They need help on the edge. By doubling up, you hope to get one of the 2 right. If you get both right, awesome, spectacular, all the better. I took Torrey Horton here. This was a personal preference pick, but also, again, I thought a decent value pick. PFF Big Board has him at 112 for prospect rankings. I get him here at 104. Super reliable. Stat stuffer at Colorado State. He's only falling on some boards because of a knee injury he had in 2024. It cut his season short. There was a lot of unknown around the knee injury. Like was it ACL, MCL, what was it? There was a lot of speculation about that. Nothing really officially released at the time. All that was known was that a knee injury caused Horton to miss the rest of his 2024 season, and he did have surgery on that knee. Came out at his pro day, looked good. I've mentioned this before. His pro day was it was snowing during his pro day, and I was like, is there a more perfect fit right now than this wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers specifically? You just 5th-year senior, another one of the older guys, but everything about him I like. Above average speed, above average quickness, above average route runner, incredible hands. Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, you hope they can put it behind them. Last year, they had the yips. Both were in the top 5 in the NFL. I think they were tied for 5th with each other for most drops in the NFL. Torrey Horton, very, very sure-handed wide receiver. I think similarly to Io Manor, who we took in round 3, you can ask the question, because this is now 2 wide receivers we take about 40 picks apart, round 3 and round 4. You can ask about Horton, like, at his best, is he ever a number 1 wide receiver on your team? And we don't have that answer. Does he have the ceiling of a T-Mac, of a Tetaroa McMillan? Probably not. Does he have the ceiling of a Matthew Golden, who's probably going to go round 1? Probably not. But like another receiver who's going to go round 1, Emeka Ibuka, or right around there, late round 1, early round 2, Ibuka out of Ohio State. Floor, something I've mentioned. Like, Torrey Horton's floor is so high. He's so reliable. His hands are really, really good. And he just, you look at everything with him, and it's like, oh, he does above average in this department, and in this department, and in this department. And really the only thing holding him back from being an absolute slam dunk day 2 pick was the knee injury, in my opinion. And, he can get jammed off his routes a little bit at times. But it's not like he's, massively undersized at wide receiver. So, yeah, I went wide receiver again. I'm a big, big Torrey Horton fan. To me, you're getting someone who will unequivocally, consistently contribute for you once he gets settled in, once he finds a role with whatever team he lands with. I do hope, depending on how the draft shakes out for Green Bay, I would love to see them go Torrey Horton at some point, 3rd, 4th round in the draft. Things get really interesting here. So we picked at 94, 99, and 104, but we didn't have a 2nd round pick. That's fine with me. Green Bay now trades into pick number 108. And Green Bay gets pick 108 in the 4th round, and they get picked 213 in the 6th round, and they trade Jaire Alexander to the Las Vegas Raiders. I wanted to include Jaire in some sort of trade in the draft because Goody keeps saying, we'll see how the draft goes. We'll see how the draft goes. Whenever he's asked about Jaire, I had a video that I did a couple weeks ago, and I said at this point, like, basically just bring Jaire back, but I knew it was far-fetched. Like, I was speaking with my heart more than my mind because I thought with how things were going, like, and how the corner room's going to look without him, there's going to be a pressing need to look at that in the draft, and that's one of the reasons why I went with Dorian Strong at pick number 94 out of Virginia Tech. And so I did a video about, like, just keep Jaire at this point, put ego aside, let bygones be bygones, and just figure this thing out. And it's become pretty apparent, like, that's just not going to happen. Goody wants to get something back for Jaire. I don't think you're getting a second or a third. A first would be laughable because you have to think whatever team takes on Jaire is inheriting his contract if he's not open to restructuring it, and he has every right to say no to a restructure if he wants, if that's what he desires. And so I have Green Bay trading Jaire for picks 108 and 213 to the Raiders. I thought a 4th and a 6th was more than fair. Maybe only get a 4th. I don't know. Because, again, when you're looking at trade value chart, you can't include players. You can only include the picks and then add up the points and see if the value spits out to be equally. Las Vegas specifically, I thought, like, why does Vegas need him? Well, Nate Hobbs was arguably Las Vegas' top corner last year. He's now with the Packers. There's a need at corner for Vegas. And you can say, do they really want a vet in Jaire? Like, I think for a few years now we've thought of, pretty much since they traded Derek Carr and Devontae Adams, we've thought of Vegas as like, oh, they're kind of going through a retooling phase. I don't think they would ever phrase it as a rebuild. But look at what they've done this offseason already. They bring in Pete Carroll. They trade for Geno Smith. This is a team that's trying to fix things fast. You know, Pete Carroll coming back into coaching after, was it a year off? Like, he's not a young spring chicken in the coaching department. He might be the oldest coach in the NFL. Like, there is a window here, you would think. Like, Pete Carroll didn't sign up for the Raiders gig with the idea of, like, man, I want to coach 10, 12, 14 more years. Like, this might be a 5-6 year window for the Raiders to really try to, you know, get a little dicey with some decisions, try to take more risk, but calculated risk, in which Jaire Alexander, it is a calculated risk because you know when he's on the field, he's still a really damn good corner. Like, he still produces at a top-tier level. It's just the availability has been the problem. And I think if you're the Raiders here and you say, man, if we can just get things right, and you're banking it on health, which is hard to do at times. He's only played in 34 of the last 68 regular season games that have been on the docket for he and Green Bay. But if he's on the field for the Raiders, he's going to be an awesome cornerback. And you're only giving up a 4th and a 6th here. Like, the Raiders are making moves and putting things in order. I think they're a sneaky team in the first round, too, for Ashton Genty, the running back out of Boise State. Again, that's a different story for a different day. The window is not overly long term from a viewing point when you bring in Pete Carroll and Geno Smith. Like, Geno Smith's not some young quarterback in his 20s who's just getting his feet wet. Like, Geno Smith has been, you know, around the block in terms of his career in the NFL. And so I think getting Jaire Alexander makes sense for Las Vegas. They have the space, the cap space to do it, and they give up a 4th and a 6th, and they say, hey, if he's healthy, good. We get a one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL. And for Green Bay, you finally find a trade partner, maybe not the compensation you desired, but you're getting something. You're getting a 4th and a 6th. And with that 4th round pick at number 108, I took another corner. I took Jacob Parrish, cornerback out of Kansas State. So for those keeping track at home, yes, we have taken 6 picks so far, 2 edge rushers, 2 wide receivers, and 2 cornerbacks. And you might say, this Mitch guy has extreme paranoia about the deemed weaknesses on the Packers roster. You're damn right I do. I'm also going for some value plays here, though. Parrish, second cornerback we've taken. Dude's a grinder, 5'10", not afraid to force the issue with a wide receiver. That word versatility, you're going to get sick of hearing me say it. Other Packers content creators say it, but Green Bay truly, truly values it. And Parrish is one of these guys at 5'10", and with how he plays and his style of play, if you wanted to try to kick him inside at slot, you could try it. If you want to play him on the outside, you could try it. Like, there's a lot of different methods to the madness to try to get Jacob Parrish into your lineup at some point. Probably not right away, though. He just, when I was watching him, he just glides around the field. Like, he always seems to be in control. And if you want speed, 4.35 40-yard dash at the combine, 9.27 RAS score out of 10. What held him back and is holding him back is out of his control. A lot of people mention the height, like just reaching 5'10" at corner. But if you look at his RAS scorecard or sheet, whatever they call it, his RAS categories lit up green, which is good, in the 40-yard dash, the 20-yard split, the 10-yard split, the broad jump, the vertical jump. The only thing that was red was his height, which, again, is out of his control. What he can control on the field with his play is pretty damn good, and I think you're getting just a really good athlete and sort of like a fun little project for Jeff Hafley to try to figure out how does this puzzle piece fit into the equation with us that is Jacob Parrish, the cornerback out of Kansas State. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Doing a 7-round mock draft with trades. We only have a couple trades left, and none of them are like groundbreaking trades like the Jaire one or trading out of the second round for 2/3 and a 7th. In this one, I had Green Bay moving back just 7 slots, 124 to 131 in round 4, but they also scoop up a late 7th at 248. And at 131, I have them taking Ohio State center Seth McLaughlin. And Green Bay typically aims for offensive linemen who can do more than one thing, who can play more than one position. You're talking about Elton Jenkins, who's making the slide from left guard to center. You're talking about Zach Tom, who played center at Wake Forest, also played tackle, and now he's your right tackle. You're talking about the aforementioned Jordan Morgan. You take him in the first round out of Arizona. Is he going to be a left tackle, right guard? We don't know. Sounds like they're going to try him out at left guard this year. McLaughlin projects to be a center only. So that might be the part where you're like, well, is that really what Green Bay's aiming for? And then you also bring up, like, what the hell they have Elton Jenkins. Like, why are they taking a center here in the 4th round at 131 and Seth McLaughlin? 2 reasons. One, McLaughlin would have gone much, much higher if not for an Achilles injury that ended his season in 2024. He had an Achilles injury, missed, I think it was the final 5 or 6 games for the Buckeyes, which includes their playoff run in a national championship trophy that they hoisted in January. He missed that and missed 5 games. It was 5 or 6. And this dude was still named the best center in college football last year. Like, I am telling you, everyone is saying it. If not for the injury, this dude goes much, much higher in the draft. So that's the first thing. That VALUE word I've used. Use it here with McLaughlin. You are assuming, maybe not assuming, I'll say you're making sure that he's in line to hopefully be the player he was before the Achilles injury, because that's nothing to mess with, especially for an offensive lineman. And so that's the first thing I'm looking at with McLaughlin. Secondly, Elton Jenkins is your center now, and Elton Jenkins is awesome. Elton Jenkins is an all-pro caliber guard. He might be an all-pro caliber center. You know, like, you don't really have worries about Elton Jenkins moving from guard to center, where that's a pretty drastic change for an offensive lineman going from guard to center, right? Like, but you have the belief that Elton Jenkins will do it fairly seamlessly. But I bring up Elton Jenkins because obviously McLaughlin projects to really be only a center at the next level, and that's Elton Jenkins' gig right now after the free agent signing of Aaron Banks. But Elton Jenkins is only under contract for 2 more years, and when he does become a free agent in 2027, he'll be 32 years old. Does Green Bay dish out another extension from now until he's projected to be a free, or not projected, when he will be a free agent in the 2027 offseason, 2 years down the road? We know how Green Bay typically operates when it comes to players who hit 30. It's like the plague sweeps across. It's like we can't go near any players who are 30 plus, which it was fine. They typically just don't bark up that tree. And so Elton Jenkins could be an exception to the rule, but if guys like Clay Matthews and Jordy Nelson weren't exceptions to the rule, is Elton Jenkins going to be? I don't know. And again, different regimes running the show there, but Brian Gutekunst was still in the building when all that was taking place and those negotiations were or weren't had. And I think it's fair to bring up Elton Jenkins' situation. Like, yeah, 2025, that's your starting center, but I'm looking long-term here because McLaughlin's coming off an Achilles injury. There's no pressure for him to play in 2025, and quite frankly, that shouldn't be on the table with whoever drafts. I mean, it probably won't be. This is insurance. This is an insurance pick. in case 2 years down the road, when Elton Jenkins turns 32, Green Bay says, probably just let him go somewhere else, which a lot of Packer fans won't want to hear, but it could become the reality. So this is kind of an insurance pick in the 4th round. Really, really, really good center before the Achilles injury, and you're hoping, you have faith that he'll be pretty damn close to that player, Seth McLaughlin, once he's fully recovered. All right, one last trade here. Is that right? Yeah, one last trade that we did. And how things played out, I took McLaughlin at 131, and then there wasn't another pick until 198, which is a pretty large gap. And so I moved up, and I traded 198 and 213, 2 6-rounders, pretty close together, for a 5th rounder at 173. So basically jumped up a little over 20 spots, but gave up 198 and 213. And at 173, I took a guy I took yesterday in a mock draft, I think in the 5th round too, Quinn Ewers, quarterback out of Texas. I'm absolutely convinced Green Bay takes a quarterback this year. I'm not going to – I guess there's people who didn't watch the mock draft video yesterday that may watch this one. But basically, to summarize quickly, my premise for why I believe Green Bay is going to take a quarterback this year in the draft is twofold. One, Malik Willis, Sean Clifford, both on the last year of their deals. I believe Malik Willis believes himself that he did enough last year in 2 starts and large playing time in 2 other games against Jacksonville and Chicago to earn the right to try to get a starting gig or compete for a starting gig next year. Not going to happen in Green Bay, not going to happen this year in 2025. He's an incredible backup quarterback. In an ideal world, that is your backup quarterback in Green Bay for the next 5, 6, 7 years. He may have outplayed that role. Tennessee was a disaster. It didn't go well for Malik Willis. Hardly any of that, in my opinion, was Malik Willis's issues. Front office structure, coaching staff structure at the end of Vrabel's tenure, and just a lack of talent to work with, whether it was wide receiver, tight end, running back, whatever you want to call it, in Tennessee for Malik Willis. It had Derrick Henry, and pretty much outside of that, it was not much. And they didn't even trust Malik Willis to throw the ball. He rejuvenated his career in Green Bay in just 2 starts, and again playing in heavy time in 2 other games. I think he leaves probably next offseason, tries to compete for a starting job elsewhere. And Sean Clifford would have been your backup, but didn't show you enough, so much so that Green Bay had to go trade a 7th rounder for Malik Willis last year. The second part of that is Goody saying multiple times now that he wants Green Bay to get back to consistently, his word, consistently drafting and developing quarterbacks. Not in the sense that, like, hey, we need someone to really push Jordan Love. We need someone to compete with Jordan Love. Like, taking a quarterback 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th round, drafting and developing, they just want to get back to that, which is completely fine. And they've tried doing it the last 2 years. Last year, they took Michael Pratt, the quarterback out of Tulane, in the 7th round, didn't work out. Year before that, took Sean Clifford out of Penn State in the 5th round, didn't work out. So I'm convinced Green Bay is going to draft a quarterback this year. I took Quinn Ewers in the 5th round. He's an intriguing prospect for a variety of reasons. Like, big games, he's stepped up for the most part. Look at games against Georgia, games they played at Michigan last year, and the dude delivered. He was the number 1 overall prospect in the country coming out of high school. Another wild card. I've seen him go round 4. I've seen him go round 5. I've seen him go late round 3. He was on the board here at 173 when I traded up. It's why I traded up, and I said, why not? I think he needs to work on becoming more than a one-read quarterback. That was kind of a crutch he had at Texas, and really diagnosing things pre-snap. He was easily fooled at times by bluffed coverages. It's a draft and develop pick for a reason, though. That's what you're getting with Quinn Ewers. 4 picks left. We'll bundle 2 together here. How about let's just bundle 2 together. They're 7th rounders, 4 7th rounders. At 219 and 237, I'm bundling them together because they're both interior defensive linemen. I took Zeke Biggers, the defensive lineman from Georgia Tech, and I took Junior Tafuna, defensive lineman out of Utah. Defensive tackle, really. I'll say this about Junior Tafuna. That's a dude with a motor that's constantly going. He'll chase plays down. He's abundantly athletic for an interior defensive lineman. I'd say the ceiling with both these guys is pretty limited, but it's like a 7th round pick. Like, you're finding a couple things that you like about each player. And I think with Tafuna, if he maxes out it's a guy that could maybe play some early downs for you in the NFL. You're never going to be a 3-down guy. Never going to be a guy that consistently hits home. Never going to be a guy that consistently steps up to clog running lanes in the ground game. But if he maxes out, and again, this is why it's pick 237, I think Junior Tafuna is a guy that can spot duty, give you some early down play here and there down the road. Definitely, I would not say so as a rookie. Pick 248, round 7, guy I took yesterday. The last two are guys I took yesterday or in Monday's video. Luke Lachey, tight end out of Iowa. I had mentioned in Monday's video that it might be head scratching to some of you because you're like, why are you going tight end? Well, right here it's pick 248 in the 7th round, and I'll tell you why. Tucker Kraft is your alpha. He's evolving into one of the better young tight ends in the entire National Football League. No one's doubting that. Matt LaFleur, I think, would like to run more 12 personnel. Well, you have a second tight end in Luke Musgrave, but he's more of a vertical threat. He's not known for being a good run blocker. He's also suffered brutal injuries his first 2 years in the NFL. It is a massive, massive year for Luke Musgrave. Sort of a prove-it year in Green Bay. If he gets another injury, you start to question his future in Green Bay. If the production isn't there, and I think there's going to be opportunities because Christian Watson's going to be out for a while, and I know it's a different position, but I'm talking about pass catchers for Green Bay. Watson's going to be out for a while, and Green Bay, up to this point, never addressed the wide receiver position outside of, an afterthought signing in McCole Hardman this offseason. So there should be opportunity for Luke Musgrave if he's on the field, if he's available. It's a huge year for him. I took Lachey for a couple of reasons. Gives you all the effort. He's a decent pass catcher. He's a decent run blocker. Doesn't necessarily fly off the screen. Iowa's become a factory at tight end, and I banked in on that here a little bit. Again, it's a 7th round pick. Find a couple things you like. And the last one, I really, really want. I was talking to one of my buddies, Brady, about this guy a couple of times at pick 250. I did a video he was included in when I was talking about, I don't remember what it was about. Was it Packer fits or Packer guys that fit later in the draft? And then in Monday's mock, I took him where there were no trades. Didn't have to do any fiddling around here at 250. He was available. I truly think Green Bay would use a 7th round pick on him. And if they don't do that, I truly believe he could be an undrafted free agent. He just screams Green Bay Packer to me. It's Esa Pole, offensive tackle out of Washington State. I've talked about his story enough. Just started playing football a few years ago. Incredibly raw talent. A guy that you think is just scratching the surface. I look at Rasheed Walker, who was a 7th round pick out of Penn State for Green Bay a few years ago. He's now your starting left tackle. Like, Green Bay has had so much success drafting, developing offensive linemen. Pole, to me, I said he's just scratching the surface. I don't know how high he can go. 7th round pick. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns, but a dude who just started playing football a few years ago. His mom didn't want him to play. His brother played at Washington State as a defensive tackle back in 2011 to 2015. Mom was worried about head injuries. He got her blessing, went to the offensive side of the ball, played at offensive line. Green Bay used a 30 visit on him. If you look at Green Bay's left tackle spot, there's some uncertainty. Rasheed Walker's in a contract year. Jordan Morgan's going to compete for the spot, but if that doesn't work out and Rasheed Walker walks next year, if he, no pun intended, if he doesn't get a deal with Green Bay, then what do? Pole, I don't want to say is insurance for that, but it's an option, right? And just like Rasheed Walker was a 7th round pick, anytime Green Bay drafts an offensive lineman, I believe wholeheartedly in their development process with offensive linemen. So you look at Pole and you're like, is he a project? Absolutely, 100%. Would not need to be a day one guy for Green Bay. There you go. Mock draft, trades involved. Jaire sent to Las Vegas. We went edge, wide receiver, corner with the first 3 picks, and then wide receiver, edge, corner for the next 3. Paranoia creeping into my mind a little bit. Let me know what you think. Draft is right here around the corner in just a couple of days, again, depending on when you watch the video. It is Mitch. I'm on YouTube. Always appreciate all the support. We'll see you next time.